Blog Talk Radio, the world's largest online radio network.
Martin, it's so great to have you here. Hi, how are you? And before we even get to that point, how are we going to change the name of this album? $2 to Ride the Train. And you know why I'm asking that question.
Ken, it's great to be here. In fact, I did ride the path to get here, and I paid $2.25 to ride the train. And you know what happened a while back in Portland, Oregon, which is where I live, is that the transportation office, the TriMet, the Oregon Transportation System, called and requested that I record a new version of the song. And they wanted the lyrics changed to either I paid $2.50 to ride the train, or even better for them, I paid some money to ride the train. Now the reason for that is that they're changing their rates, and they don't want the community to be confused about what it costs to ride the train there, and they are looking to win people over, because the truth is that public transportation is very important, and with all of the budget cuts, they are not able to run the system effectively. They would have to cut lines or raise the price a little bit. So they contacted me, and I obliged, and now there's another version called I Paid Some Money to Ride the Train, which will be out shortly. We'll hear it.
That is so funny. So that, all right, so he's going to have to keep on evolving this album. Imagine 30 years down the road now, $20 to ride the train, perhaps, one stop or two. Martin, seriously,
well,
it's great to have you here. You look terrific. You are riding the crest of the wave of this amazing new album of yours, which you know I'm totally in love with. You've got it by now. How does it feel? How do you feel at this point? You're holding the CD, or I'm holding the CD in my hand. How does it feel?
Well, I have to tell you, to see you holding it with such enthusiasm and telling me all these wonderful things, I feel great. I feel very welcome here. I feel very happy that people are listening to the music and responding, much like yourself, very enthusiastically, very openly to it, and they're willing to listen to 18 tracks, which is sort of unheard of for an album these days. It's a bit, it's a lot of information, but the songs are short, and so people have been very kind and positive about it, and I feel great. I couldn't have asked for more, in a sense. I know there's a lot of music out there these days, and people have so many entertainment options. It's difficult to focus for 18 songs, but I think the album really takes you on a journey, and so it makes it easier to do that. But that's I think that's the key to it, is to find a way to bring people in and tell the story that people can connect to, and I feel like that has happened in this album, and the responses has showed me that, and I'm very happy about it.
Well, I'm very glad you are. You know, you talk about 18 tracks, Martin, but actually it's 48 minutes and 26 seconds of magnificence. I have it on my player here in the studio, and it plays and it plays and it plays, and I put it on repeat sometimes because I'm almost disappointed when it's over.
Oh.
It becomes a thing of, oh, that's it? We're done? We have to start again. And I don't mind. So now I just learned to put it on repeat, and I adore it. I don't think there's one note on this album that I think, it didn't like that song or didn't like anything. I adore the whole thing from start to finish. It is magnificent. It really and truly is.
Thank you for saying that.
How have the sales gone?
Well, you know, I don't know, because they don't come in daily. I get reports from iTunes and Amazon. I think it takes about 45 days between reports. So I'm sort of waiting to see what has happened. Initially, one of the things that really caught my cousin's interest was that he looked on iTunes to search for one of the songs. In fact, it was the song Moliendo Café, which is one of the favorites, I believe, on the album, partially because it's a song that people know. It's one of the two covers. Everything else is original. but that one had some visibility right off the bat, and so my cousin looked for it on iTunes and found that it was number 2 on iTunes for that song, which has hundreds of versions out. And for the first week, it was the second most popular version of that song, and it was right above Julio Iglesias. Never in my wildest dreams had I imagined that I would outsell Julio Iglesias even for one day. But that was what happened with that, just with that song, of course, not in total sales. But I was surprised about that. Now, that's still a very small share of the overall market of music sales, but I felt like I was kind of delighted to see that people were catching on and were downloading the music.
That is awesome. What a wonderful story. Martin, let's take our very first short break, and let's listen to Cascabel. Did I say that correct?
Absolutely.
Let's listen to that, and when we come back, let's get down and dirty and talk about Little Martin and get the show going from there. So listen, folks, stay with us. You're listening to the 4th track on this brilliant, brilliant album. When we come back, Martin and I will continue our conversation. Stay there and enjoy, get into the mood. We certainly are. We're having an enormous amount of fun here. So you do too. We'll be right back after this short break. You know what? You're never going to get tired of these 48 minutes and 26 seconds. I assure you that. This is truly one of the most amazing, amazing albums. And you know me by now. When I get onto something, I just go on and I go on and I go on and I go on. And
Kenneth, you go on and on and on. I love it. You develop the shameless promotion that we can't do for ourselves, and I can't tell you how grateful I am for that.
Well, you're absolutely welcome. I'm glad that I can play just a little part in getting people to listen to this brilliant work. Let's start with Little Martin. You American-born?
Well, South American-born. I was born in Lima, Peru.
Aha.
And I was quickly moved over to London, Cambridge first, and then London with my family. Then I lived in London for many years. We moved back to Peru for a few years, then moved to France. Lived in France, in Spain, and back in London for a little while longer. And then moved back to South America, and shortly after that moved to New York, and then to Portland, Oregon, in around 1996.
Wow, you have been around, which prompts the next question: how many languages do you speak, Martin?
It's hard to tally that up exactly because I don't feel like I speak all the languages that I am familiar with to the same degree, but I speak English, a little bit of English. I speak Spanish. Spanish is my first language. English, I guess, would be my second language. French would be my third language, and Portuguese is something that is has become one of the languages that I like very much, and I speak to some extent, but mostly because I really love Brazilian music, and also fado these days. I think just the Portuguese language and culture have so much to offer.
And so with all of that, you've forgotten one of the most primary languages you speak.
Oh, did I?
American.
Oh, American. Oh, yes, of course. I'm learning. So the first day that I was in school in Portland, in high school, I still had a very thick British accent, and I tapped one of my classmates on the shoulder, and I said, "Excuse me, have you got a rubber?" And I had made a mistake, and of course, the class, exactly, that's what happened. So from that day on, I worked really hard to change my accent, to learn American. And it's sort of something that I've been doing all my life, is learning how to adapt to a new place. Not out of shame, usually, but mostly just because it's fun to learn what other people are about.
Absolutely is. Martin, if you just knew how many times I had made eternal screw-ups speaking South African English, which is a spin-off from British English. Things that I've said in this country, people have looked at me as if I just slapped them through the face. For example, forgive me if I should say this, but a hooter in South Africa is a horn, as in we have a hooter in a horn that you in a car.
Right.
Yeah, you beep your horn. We beep the hooter if you get
kind of
away.
makes sense.
Just really. Well, it does make sense, but not to America, so you can imagine how many times I've been in trouble from that.
I'm surprised you're still out and not
Yeah.
in some sort of Guantanamo prison these days with law enforcement the way it is.
No kidding. Listen, of all the places you lived in your life, what sticks out in your mind as being a really nice place to be?
I really like, I really enjoyed the Appalachia, as they call it, on this recent tour with Dave Agar and Amber Rubarth. I didn't really know what I was in for. Beautiful people, just very warm, very open, very friendly, and the scenery, the mountains are gorgeous. This is, it's very, very close to the East Coast. It's a 12-hour drive. We drove yesterday, and it was really lovely. It was a surprise to me. But also, I like Europe very much. I still feel quite at home in London. I think that I always have this sort of nostalgia and this idea that I will live in London someday. But I don't know if it's something that will actually happen. Portland, Oregon is also very nice. And I've always wanted to go to Madagascar. And something that I wanted to ask you about, since you're also in the travel business. But we'll get to that later. I've never been there yet.
It's a very interesting destination.
The baobab tree.
Very interesting destination. So let me do a selfless plug here. This episode of One Voice Radio is brought to you by To Africa. No, I'm just kidding.
You didn't expect that, did you, Ken?
No, I didn't see that coming
I'm here
at
to
all.
help you as well.
Hey, thank you, Martin. One hand, what do the Portuguese say? One hand washes the other, together they wash the face. I think that's brilliant saying, wherever that comes from. Folks, our special guest is Martin Zarzar, as you well know by now. What an incredible man to be working alongside this evening. And you need to go out and you need to get his music. Apple iTunes, Amazon.com, and anywhere else you can find it. We'll post all of these links to our show page this evening so that you can get your own copies of this incredible CD. It's called $2 to Ride the Train. It certainly is the top of my playlist. It's in my iPod, and it doesn't stop playing here in our studio. So again, go up to the Apple iTunes store, go to Amazon.com, and of course you'll want to go and like Martin's fan page on Facebook. We'll post that up as well. So like it so you can stay along with what he's doing, where he'll be performing, and when. Because trust me, having seen him perform here in New York City, he's one of the guys you really need to be seeing and watching. The emotion. It's very, very hard to describe. Go see him. We're going to take a short break and listen to Mr. Likely, which is track number 15 on the album. And when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Martin Zarzar, who is my really great guest here this evening. So stay there, keep comfortable, we'll be right back. That is rather, what did you say?
It's a bit sinister, isn't it?
It's a bit sinister. Shall we try and do the rest of our show in British this evening, Martin?
Why not?
Do you hear the difference of your name Martin as opposed to Martin?
Yeah, I think I prefer Martin, or Martin. You know, the thing about my British accent is that I was a child when I spoke that way, and so I've never had a British accent as an adult. So if I try to do it, I'll sound like a 5-year-old kid. It's very strange.
That is funny indeed. Listen, what inspired Mr. Likely?
That I am not at liberty to discuss that right now. It's a bit sinister.
It's a bit sinister. Moving right along.
Maybe too sinister to talk about. Actually, I can't tell you where that soundbite came from. I had a girlfriend for a long time, and she used to tell me whenever I said something that seemed rather unlikely, that generally they were things that were true, and I wouldn't just make up stories to impress her. But she would always say a likely story. And so I always had this likely, and it slowly became personified in my mind somewhere. And so one day I just started writing a poem called Mr. Likely, and I read it to Gavin Bondi, one of the guys in Pink Martini, one of my good friends as well, and he's the trumpet player in the band, and he thought it was very good, and he said, "Why don't you set this to music?" And this was not that long ago. And so for the album, I decided to finish the poem and to set it to music. And I mean, it wasn't really, it was sort of a Dr. Seuss-ish kind of poem. It's almost childish, but there is a sinister undertone to it.
And you know, you performing artists can really get your own back. Let's go Pink for just a moment. If there's one individual on this planet I would never, ever want to be, that is Eugene.
Oh.
As in,
from the
hey,
song.
Eugene.
Yeah. Many Pink Martini fans have claimed that they are the Eugene. And the Eugene. And they've come up to me in the signing line and asked to have their picture taken with me to show to China that, look, Eugene is here. And every time that I've done that, China has said, no, that's not Eugene. So people, get it together. If you're not Eugene, China knows who Eugene is. You're not gonna come across as Eugene if you're not Eugene.
I think that was
she's a lot more clever than that.
I just sort of, jeez, you've really got to have bad luck in your life if you just dump someone and then there's international news going around the world about you.
Right. Well, it turns out that from what I hear, that Eugene did call, but the phone line wasn't working, so she didn't know that he had called, and that's sort of the real story.
That is story, and he's going to stick to it, I guess, right? Martin, tell us about Pink Martini. That was an enormous part of your life, performing alongside the group. What was that like? You must have amazing tales and memories. Let's chat about that for a moment.
Absolutely. It's about a third of my life that I've spent with Pink Martini, and it's sort of a family now. You know, we're like brothers and sisters, and sometimes we're grounded, sometimes we're in good terms with each other. I mean, all of the family dynamics have occurred. It's a wonderful thing. Everybody in the group is very talented. I've learned very, very much working with them. Thomas Lauderdale, who is the founder of the band, he's a very interesting guy. He's brilliant in many ways. We've had a very good working relationship. We've done a lot of arranging and done some writing together, and just it's been a very interesting process throughout. The band is very alive and creative. And I've certainly learned a lot especially about the music business, because it's a group that has a lot of visibility, unlike a lot of the other things that I do that are more under the radar, not by choice but just by fate. And but that's how it is. You know, you don't know how people respond to what you're doing until you put it out there, and you want to stay true to the music. And it's hard to make compromises as a musician. I think that Pink Martini has been it's sort of a powerhouse for everybody who's in the band, so to kind of get their bearings and go from there, and has allowed us all to continue to exist in the music world without having to have day jobs. And it's been an incredible resource. And also just a very thoughtful group of people. I mean, in a way, it's a think tank. Thomas calls it he refers to the group as being a musical ambassadorship to the rest of the world, and that's why we touch on so many types of music. And we always try to pay homage to the places where we play. And people respond very well to that. Now, that's something that I've always done in my life, as we mentioned before, the idea of trying to understand what other people are about and adapting and adopting their way of life, and sharing what you know from where you've been with them, and finding those open channels of communication. And I think Thomas has been really good about that with Pink Martini, and encouraging us all to do that. So it was also a really good fit for me, having grown up in South America and Europe, and partially in the United States, to work with Pink Martini. It was a very natural sort of synergy. We had already a lot of things in common musically, and it was just a great way to expand on that for me.
Almost like a great ambassadorship around the world, actually, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And you had a lot of time to travel around the world. I mean, you've traveled with Pink Martini all over the show.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been an incredible journey. We've been around the world many times. A lot of flights, a lot of layovers, a lot of hard work too. I mean, it's great and it's a wonderful thing, and it's also very strenuous. And I'm very proud of everybody in the group for having endured so much and given so much of themselves in each performance. And it's a testament to people's creativity and just will to do these things. And no matter what the conditions are, we try to put on a good show. And I do that with every group I work with. It's the music is important. The people who come to see you are absolutely important. Otherwise, we would just be rehearsing at home.
Absolutely would. Martin, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to open up the studio lines because people should call in and have a quick chat to you. But before we do that, a young friend of mine whose name is Catarina Polemi, she was born in Brazil and of Brazilian and Greek parents, spent part of her life in London, and she's just one of these incredibly artistic, flighty, beautiful, deep, gorgeous woman. I'm absolutely in love with her. She popped me a note today knowing that we were going to be doing this show tonight, and she's otherwise occupied, so she couldn't call in. But she writes, Kenneth, do me a favor, my love. Please tell the following to Martin, and I'll read this to you. All the very best of luck for your album. Tell him it's from Katarina. Tell him that Katarina loves his songs, and they make her feel the air and life again in a subtle way.
That is delightful. That's beautiful. Those sorts of things just make my day. The idea that something that that reaches somebody can inspire a response like that. Who knows? Maybe she went and wrote some more of her music. I think I heard a clip of hers earlier today. And she's a wonderful artist, and I'm honored that she said that. Thank you, Katarina.
Thank you, Katarina. Evharisto, Koki, for saying that. That really is lovely. You know how crazy I am about you, and you need to come back to the U.S. so we can do a show again. Folks, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to listen to another song that I really love. Track number 3, La Valse Creole. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of music, and I had the pleasure of listening to Martin sitting here with his guitar playing that. It's absolutely gorgeous. Listen to it. You're going to love it. When we come back, we're going to open up those studio lines. Call in and say hi to Martin. Give him your wishes. Tell him what you think about the show so far, and, of course, his music. Remember, that number is 619-639-4749. 619-639-4749. We're going to be back right on the other side of La Valse Creole. Well, there was no doubt that maybe we would not come back. Of course we were going to come back. We're just having far too much fun here. The music's good. Thanks, everyone, for listening from around the world. What an incredible audience we have. And so deserving, in my opinion. Martin is such, and you know this, such an exceptional artist by now. This album, and did I say it's called $2 to Ride the Train? And you need to get this at Amazon.com or the Apple iTunes store. Go on now. Go get yourself a copy. You need to have this. You know that by now. Martin, what do you think of everybody listening from around the world? Isn't this great?
It is so exciting to have people calling in and commenting on all of the media from around the world. I feel like I'm truly a citizen of the world, and we live on a very spherical planet, and why not be connected and in touch and learn a little bit about one another? And I'm delighted that people have poured in with support over this album. It is incredible. I'm so thankful. In fact, actually, I'm a little bit sad about one thing that happened recently regarding YouTube, which is that they used to have a little map, and I was sometimes indulging just for fun, just looking at the little map of statistics, seeing where people were listening from around the world, and a couple places that I did not expect popped up. But since they've removed the map option from YouTube, there's no longer a map. They just list the top locations. But I thought the little map with the green countries was a very good geography lesson. So I learned even better where the countries were located around the world, And so I was poking around one day, sort of indulging in this fun activity of let's see who's listening. And I found that Kazakhstan popped up on the map. And I was sort of floored. I mean, Kazakhstan, I don't even know anybody from there. And so then I went on YouTube and I started listening to some Kazakhstani music, and I found some beautiful stuff. And so it goes both ways. You know, people come in, people chime in and they listen and they comment, and then I'll go and look to see, you know, what that place is about and what music I can find from there. Also, I heard, I saw on the lovely YouTube map that's no longer with us, that people in Ethiopia were listening to the music, and of course, you know, each country has each song has a particular set of countries that listen to it. It seems like the album is very international, and so some countries like some songs more than other countries, you know, and other countries like other songs. And so it's really, really fun, but I'm so sad that YouTube doesn't have the map option. If anybody out there is listening and can pull some strings and get the map back on YouTube, it is a great geography lesson. And I'm going to get rusty if that's not up, because I need it. It's hard to remember. There's so many countries.
You know, as you've got, my mind never stops. I don't know how I don't exhaust myself on a daily basis. Well, I do exhaust myself on a daily basis. But you know what? As you were saying, Ethiopia is listening to your music.
I've never been there.
But I'm suddenly thinking, Ethiopian Airlines are starting the new Dreamliner service. You know, this thing that can carry 2 million people, this double-decker big aircraft. They're the very first African carrier that has this new, a Dreamliner, I think it's called, and the 787. And they start non-stop service out of Washington Dulles into Addis Ababa.
I would like to go there.
No, I think you should go ahead and approach Ethiopian Airlines and ask if you can become their signature tune when passengers are boarding their aircraft. Because if the Ethiopians like the music so much, you might as well. You know, they do that on the Hawaiian flights. When you board a flight to Hawaii, they're playing that Hawaiian.
I've heard my music on airlines before. I've heard one of the songs that I wrote for Pink Martini on there several times, actually. It's called, and then I get the reports at the end of the year from BMI, and a lot of are from airline radio play. And it might be one of the few bastions of radio play that's still somewhat lucrative to artists, is the airline radios. It's the song called Mar Desconocido, which is a Peruvian waltz written by me, but in the style of Peruvian waltzes, and a bit of an homage to Chabuca Granda. And it was written, I wrote it for Pink Martini. We recorded it, and I've heard it on the airplane, boarding the flight. So I'm very happy to offer all of the music to anyone who wants to play it, and I'd be really glad to go to Ethiopia and board. I would be floored to board an Ethiopian jetliner and hear some music that I wrote.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
It would be amazing.
It really, really would be amazing. Talking about amazing, when you started loading up the YouTube videos that you created, or slide images, there was one specific image on there, and I want you to talk with us about it because it fascinated me. And that was the one that you said, it's almost ready, it's almost ready, it's almost ready, but I'm looking for one particular photograph of someone with an instrument.
Oh, yes, Kenneth. Wow, you have an amazing memory. Yes, I found this picture. You know, I had forgotten, after so much digital media, I had forgotten that I have so many old pictures. And I found an incredible shot of my own grandmother playing a guitar. Now, I don't know how well she played the guitar. She has never played for me, but she looks like she knows what she's doing in this picture. And it is a beautiful picture. I would say, well, my grandma tends to lie about her age, and so I don't really know how old she is. She claims to be 35, but I'm pretty sure she's older than that.
That's funny, God bless her.
But she doesn't look much older than that. And so,
she doesn't, really.
And in that picture, she certainly looks, at most 20-something, but she's probably much more than 20-something. So Grandma Aida Zarzar who is my Palestinian grandmother. Well, she's Peruvian Palestinian, and half of my family came from Palestine to the New World, so to speak, in the 1930s. And they've been there. There's a big Palestinian community in Lima, Peru, as well as other cities of South America. So that's part of that story, that picture that you're recalling.
You know, here's another really non-related question, but when you sit and consider the fact that part of your heritage comes from Palestine to Peru, then you arrive on the planet and you start your whole world journey. Isn't it amazing that the world is so big and yet we can go and imbibe all of these cultures, different religions, different foods, different people, different values, and that yet we're all connected as one. Isn't that amazing in a way?
It amazes me every day, and it's a very. I see that. I think we're learning how to get along. And I don't want to seem overly optimistic, but the feeling I get from traveling so much, and from my own background and seeing that I'm really just a blend of so many things. And everybody is, if they really dig and look. And you know, the farther back you go, the more everyone's related and interconnected. And the feeling that I get from traveling is that people are really learning how to get along in this world. I know there's conflict around the world, but I think slowly we're learning, and that gives me hope. It's a wonderful thing, Kenneth.
It is a wonderful thing. I totally agree with you, Martin. Who inspires you?
Everyone I meet has something to say that is interesting, and I learn from everyone. Truly, there's not a person out there that is not interesting. It would be fascinating to meet someone who was absolutely uninteresting. I dare you to find me a person that is not interesting in some way. But I guess my biggest, one of the people who's inspired me the most is my grandfather, who passed away a few years ago. His name was Guillermo Proaño. He was an architect, musician, painter, an incredible person, just absolutely moral in every sense of the word, very, very thoughtful, very, very just person. He really thought about how we impact one another as we go through life, and I think that is really the biggest moral question. Not you know, what mores are right or wrong about you know, preconceived things, but rather how we impact one another, how we affect each other, and how we can treat each other in a better way. And so that was a huge lesson to me, and I was very fortunate to have somebody like that in my life. But also, musically speaking, the music of Chabuca Granda from Peru. I like also classical music. I know it's a misnomer, but you know, I really like Schubert. I really like Mozart. Maybe to a fault. I think I'm a bit old-fashioned that way. I listen to Mozart a lot. I really like of my peers. I really like Dave Egar. He's an incredible cellist and pianist who lives in New York, in Brooklyn, and he travels all over the world. We just finished a tour, and he's absolutely incredible. He went to Juilliard when he was very young. Then he went to Harvard and studied neuroscience, and then he went back to Juilliard to get his doctorate in composition and cello. Incredible person. Also, you know, my parents, Luciana, Alonso, John, my stepdad, and Tati, my stepmother. I mean, everybody. I know so many wonderful people. I feel horribly fortunate. I feel like something terrible will happen to me someday because I know too many wonderful people. Something bad just needs to happen to balance the equation. I feel like.
Oh no! You need to stop that thought right there. You know, seriously, you're a man with incredibly good intent, and don't quite know how to say this without it coming across sounding odd. But there is certainly a being in your presence, Martin. There certainly is a feeling of incredible warmth and kindness and caring and love. I think that's you. That's the human being. And that you give out, you're only ever going to get back in your life. To me, that's very, very evident. So don't look for the possible bombshell, what's going to go wrong, because I've got all these amazing people. You deserve them because you really are an amazing, amazing man. Listen, what time is it?
That's one of the songs, or do you want to know the time? Because there is a song.
I'm doing a segue into a break. We're going to take a short break here. What time is it? What is this? 4 a.m., 4 p.m., or 4? Oh God, it's the length of the tune. Yes. I probably did write it at 4 a.m. because I write a lot at 4 a.m. But that's just the length of the song. I know you do. What time it is track number 16. Listen to this, and when we come back, am I going to put Mr. Zarzar right on the spot? He ain't going to know what hit him. So stay there, enjoy what time it is, and clearly, who gives a damn what time it is? We're having a fantastic evening together here. My guest, Martin Zarzar, I'm thrilled to have him here. What a beautiful man, good soul, beautiful music. I'm having a lot of fun, and I know you are too. And to those callers who called in, thanks, guys. Your CDs are going to be signed and sent to you very, very shortly. Track 16, what time is it? We'll be right back.
Thank you, Kenneth.
The hat.
The hat, yes. My hat fell off.
What's the thing with the hat? No, you've had this hat on since when?
I have to tell you about this hat because it's not a usual staple of my attire to wear a hat. I have so much hair. Wearing a hat is really a bad idea. But on this tour with Dave Eggar, everybody had some sort of head ornament, and I didn't want to be the odd one out, so I bought a hat. And it has a feather in it. Actually, no, that's not the whole story. My dad gave me a beautiful straw hat from Ecuador, and I brought it to New York because it was hot, and I thought I should wear a hat. And then I noticed that everybody else had some sort of head ornament, and I thought, oh, great, this will fit right in. But my hat, because it was so hot and dry when I arrived, it cracked. The straw just completely came apart. And so I went to the little shop around the corner from Dave Eggar's house in Brooklyn and found this hat for $5 with a feather in it. I'm sure it wasn't made under the best labor conditions, but I needed a hat at that moment, so it was an impulse buy. I bought this $5 hat, and it has accompanied me through the entire tour. And the thing about you can pay $5 to have a hat, but to have your hair look this way, and I know people can't see us when we're on the radio, but I have really good radio hair, and money cannot buy radio hair. You have to be on the road for 3 weeks to have this kind of mess that I have. It's atrocious.
That's funny. Yeah, you know what somebody said to me once? I didn't know if it was good, bad, I didn't know if I should laugh or cry, but somebody very seriously said to me, you have the perfect face for radio.
Oh, no. I don't know, Kenneth. I don't know what that means.
Well, you're ugly enough. You shouldn't be on television, baby, but radio is good enough for you.
I think you could be on television just fine, Ken.
Oh, damn, I love so much. Listen, I love the way you performed it. That was an absolute treat. Well done to you. Now, here's another one of my inquiring mind questions. When you're not Martin, the performer on stage, the artist, doing radio interviews, what does Martin, the other Martin, do for fun? What do you do to relax, to, settle down, just to get your mind away from music, if you even do that after you, and perhaps, but what gets you? What do you like doing? Do you like roller coasters?
I do like roller coasters very much, indeed. I haven't been on one for a long time, but it is something that I have enjoyed. I don't have any plans of going to any roller coasters, and these days I have very little time to relax. So I try to relax and enjoy what I do for work. Sort of, it's not hard to enjoy music, and I feel like I am blessed with a career that has also built into it a lot of meeting people, a lot of socializing, and a lot of beautiful moments spent with your instrument. I kind of practice for fun. I think what I really enjoy most is, ironically enough, practicing. You can't always tell, but I do practice a lot these days. my time is divided between practicing on the guitar, practicing piano, practicing bass, and writing. I also enjoy writing more music. I have a bunch of new stuff. Now, since we're here, I'll do a shameless plug for the next album. I'm underway with this next project, so get this new one while it's still around, because the next one will be on its heels. I also like to watch movies. I don't have a television, but I do like to watch film, and I like to bike. I'm always on a bike wherever I go in my hometown in Portland, Oregon. I go almost everywhere by bicycle if I can. And yeah, that's pretty much my routine: practicing writing and cycling, and hanging out with the family. I love my little brothers. I spend time with them whenever I can. And I eat a lot of Thai food.
All right, and now a personal answer. No, I'm just kidding you. Yeah, no, but I can see you're in exceptionally good shape, so clearly you do a lot of cardio stuff. Biking being it, I suppose, that really keeps you...
It's transportation for me. That and $2 to ride the train. But I have to walk to the train. Or, in Portland, you can bike to the train. You can take your bike on the train, which I think is amazing.
Oh, that's a good thing. Yeah. I think you can here as well.
Oh.
But I don't have a bike. But having said all that, yeah, I can. That's a good thing. Tell me this. Here's a sort of right out of left field kind of question. What is your take on bullying? There's so much of it going on around the world now, and on Facebook, and people doing. What's your take on bullying?
Well, I was a big bully when I was a kid. I mean, I'm really, really tall, as you can see. I'm very strong. I'm sorry. I had to indulge. The luxury of not being seen when you speak is really a little too much for my... It gets the better of me. I always will try to mislead people into thinking that I'm tall and strong and handsome. But the truth is, no, I was never a bully. I did encounter some bullies when I was a child. I don't... of course, I don't endorse it. It's a horrible thing. I think you're hinting. I wonder, are you hinting at the political bullying, at the maybe foreign policy decisions? Is that something that you have in mind when you say that, or are we talking more at the grade school level?
No,
it's a similar thing, though, isn't it? It's very grade school. I feel like the foreign policies in the United States is sort of grade school. Grade school foreign policy.
No, I just see so many people bully so many other people, or I just, not wanting to dampen our conversation this evening, but recently, a couple of years ago, there was a boy, in his early 20s, who jumped off the George Washington Bridge in absolute despair because he'd been bullied by his dorm mate, his roommate at school. And I just found that so despicable that people do things like that. We say so many unkind things that are said to people. I find for myself, if I can't say something nice to you or about you, I'd rather just shut up. I'd rather not say it and not even think it. I'd rather just let it go away. When I see the level of how people are pushed around and bullied and treated unkindly in the world, a lot of people are subject to that, and yet it's the unspoken word. Nobody says a word about it. Nobody says anything about it, and then along comes me and says, "Stop doing that, kids. Be nice to one another." It's
a very sad thing. It's a horribly tragic story that you just referred to, and it's not an isolated thing. It does happen a lot. I feel like it's so easy to find good things to say about people. It's so easy that I'm surprised when people don't immediately find those things. I think if we think about it for a moment and step back, it's very easy to find something positive to say. You don't have to focus on the negative stuff. At the same time, you don't want to go through life being uncritical. But I think that what I've learned from actually. My good friend Eugene Skeef, he comes to mind with this because he has such a huge fellow South African, and he has such an open heart and such a beautiful way of communicating with people. When he doesn't have to be uncritical, but he makes you feel, when he has some criticism, he makes you feel like you still belong. He will let you know what he thinks about a particular thing without any inhibition, but in a way that makes you feel like you belong in the conversation, that you're not being ostracized, that you're not being set apart and bullied, that you are in the process and that you're together in it. And I think that is not something, it's a gift that a few people have, and that we can learn from those people. It's something that I've always, tried to. I don't think it's particularly a gift that I have, but he does, and I feel like we need to look up to those people, and especially the more and more people there are in the world, it's so easy to feel threatened. And I think that bullying comes from insecurity and from a place of feeling threatened, feeling like you're not going to have what you deserve, or that maybe you weren't loved, and that you need you have a lot of angst, and it just comes out, and you fear everybody, and so you need to impose yourself, not just in an interpersonal way, but I feel like the whole agenda of national security is fear-based, and it's this idea that if we don't get the first blow, that something's going to happen to us. And I feel like that just perpetuates violence and hatred in people's lives as well as in a country's life. So, I think we can all just wake up and realize that we're all in this together, and so get rid of some of those boundaries and bring people closer.
Very well said indeed, folks. My special guest here this evening on One Voice Radio is Martin Zarzar. Now remember, this episode of One Voice Radio is available on demand, and it'll be available right as we're finished here this evening. It's available here on the Blog Talk Radio page, and by tomorrow morning it's going to be as a podcast available in the Apple iTunes store as well. So search One Voice from Africa, download our free podcast, and please be reminded, go off to the Apple iTunes store and buy your own copy of $2 to Ride the Train. You can't, if you don't have an iPod or you don't have a music library, go out and get the actual CD itself. It's available at Amazon.com, and you can also visit Martin's website, his personal website, which details are up on our homepage as well this evening. I want us to listen to interlude number 2. It's only 38 seconds long. Listen to this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful piece of music. When we come back, I want to speak to Martin about the interlude. Stay there, don't go away. Now, see, this is something that I find really interesting. On the album, of the 48 minutes and 26 seconds, there are 3 interludes. That's not very usual in music today. Why? Tell us a little more about that, would you, Martin?
Yes, it's a bit enigmatic if you're not if you haven't heard the album a few times and really paid attention to the musical backdrop of what's behind the words. The interludes can seem a bit odd, but they help the flow. They're sort of palate cleansers between the tracks. And what the ideas for the continuity from between interludes and songs comes from the interludes being part of some of the songs. It's also transitional material. They modulate in a certain way that's helpful to the next track sometimes. And also, they are part of the other tracks. If you listen closely, you will find that the interludes are embedded in the tracks. And sometimes it's more obvious than others, but it's sort of this, a little bit like this. I don't want to use musical terminology that doesn't quite apply, but there's a continuous presence of these interludes throughout. So the titling of them, it seems horribly uncreative, and it is, also serves the purpose of giving you that space to know these are interludes, and something will happen after. This is sort of to remind you as you read, as you look at the words, that they are truly what they are stated as being. They're interludes. They're palate cleansers. They're little breaths of fresh air between a lot of verbiage.
You have such a lovely way of putting things, Really, you do. Just, the way you said the breath of fresh air between, it really is quite lovely. Martin, where you're sitting, you cannot see, but we have an enormous listenership, honestly, right around the world, as I said, except Africa, because they're sleeping at this time of night, but they will certainly catch the on-demand episode. But we really have a fantastic...
Shall we wake them up? Can we wake up Africa?
We can. How shall we?
I don't know. You're the one who knows about traveling to Africa. Let's ring the African alarm clock. Wake them up.
Ring the African alarm clock. We'll do that.
I don't even know what that means.
They'll catch it, because you know what I'm like. I'm just relentless on Facebook. I'll go on and on and on and on and on until they just listen to please me, which I think a lot of people sometimes do just to have me stop begging for likes and please listen to this.
One way to do it.
This is amazing. Well, you know what? Just give it a like and I'll be out of your way.
Right.
It's as simple as that. Here's something, well, to all of those people that are listening, because we have a huge, huge audience, a message from you to them would be what? You're such an inspirational man. But what would you say to the world who's listening to you right now?
Listen to Kenneth. He is not going to go away until you listen to him. For your own sake. Listen to Kenneth. He's a wonderful guy. I'm very happy to be on the radio with you, Kenneth. It's been delightful.
It has been my pleasure. It's been an enormous, enormous pleasure, Martin. Upwards and onwards with your career. Much success to you. You know, of course, I'm going to need to be one of the very first people who know when the new record is available, right? You know this.
I'm afraid so. I'm afraid that I have one that will immediately be shipped. It probably won't even come to my house. It will just go directly to you from the printers. And I'll be missing one, and then I'll find out that you had a deal with them, and that'll be accounted for.
He knows me so well. My final question, unless there's anything else you want to discuss.
I think we've talked a lot, and I don't want to overstay my welcome.
You would never overstay your welcome. But yes,
there is one thing I would like to say, actually, if we do have just a few moments. People go out and listen to music and meet people and meet one another. And it's great to be on the radio. It's great to have entertainment at your fingertips on our screens. But I feel like the screen is a bad habit in a way, because we take it for granted too easily, and we take ourselves out of the equation as listeners, and we become passively entertained. And I feel like people don't realize this, but when we get on stage, musicians go on stage, they are there for you. They are there because you're there, and it means a lot to us when people come out to hear us play, and you are part of the show. You're part of what's going on in the world, and don't let the world pass you by without adding your 2 cents. Your life is important, and we all matter to one another in more ways than we even know. So I think just get out, put on your best hat, and hit the streets, and let your voice be heard.
Get a hat with a feather, that's the one thing.
Feathers are very
Get a feather in your cap. There's a feather in your cap, Martin. In closing tonight, something you said to me in one of our many conversations was about the song that we're going to end our show with tonight. I'm not going to mention the name yet. Everybody gets it, I'm sure. But you told me that you performed every single note, every instrument, everything in it. I'll have to give away the name, right?
You might have to if you want to. Yes. It won't make sense if you don't, right?
Yeah, it won't make sense. We're going to end our show shortly.
I can tell you that a lot of the tracks on the album were just me multi-tracking and doing one instrument after another, and I left enough space for special guests because I absolutely adore the people that I met in working in music, and I wanted to make very special people part of this album. So there are many, many wonderful musicians on it, but most of the tracks are me playing several instruments to the best of my ability. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, but there it is. And thanks for noticing that, Ken.
Well, that just amazes me. Folks, I have had the most amazing evening, and I'm sure that you have too. And these are moments I'm going to cherish for a long time. It has been a long show tonight. But do me a favor. When you have any news that has to be spread, you pick up the phone anytime and you let me know. Or you email me, or you phone me, or you Facebook me, whatever it is that you do. You know that I'm there with you every step of the way, Martin. You're an amazing, amazing performer, an incredibly talented man. Keep doing what you do. Martin, thank you for being one of the most amazing guests. I have spent the most amazing evening with you. You were, as I knew you would be, simply great. There is just no question of it. I really do appreciate your time. Folks, remember you can learn more about Martin Zarzar by visiting our show page, where you will find links to his website. Go on over to the Amazon.com store, go to the Apple iTunes store. This episode is going to be available on demand as soon as we're finished this evening, and also as a podcast in the Apple iTunes store starting tomorrow morning. I'm Kenneth Hieber. Thank you so much for listening to us. Good night from New York City as we play out with, yeah, you guessed it, my absolute favorite, Moliendo Cafe. Good night, and thank you for listening.
Blog Talk Radio, where millions of hosts and listeners gather.
Hundreds of versions out, and for the first week, it was the second most popular version of that song, and it was right above Julio Iglesias. Never in my wildest dreams had I imagined that I would outsell Julio Iglesias even for one day. But that was what happened with that, just with that song, of course, not in total sales. But I was surprised about that. Now, that's still a very small share of the overall market of music sales, but I felt like I was kind of delighted to see that people were catching on and were downloading the music.
That is awesome. What a wonderful story. Martin, let's take our very first short break, and let's listen to Cascabel. Did I say that correct?
Absolutely.
Let's listen to that, and when we come back, let's get down and dirty and talk about Little Martin and get the show going from there. So listen, folks, stay with us. You're listening to the fourth track on this brilliant, brilliant album. When we come back, Martin and I will continue our conversation. Stay there and enjoy, get into the mood. We certainly are. We're having an enormous amount of fun here. So you do too. We'll be right back after this short break. You know what? You're never going to get tired of these 48 minutes and 26 seconds. I assure you that. This is truly one of the most amazing, amazing albums. And you know me by now. When I get onto something, I just go on and I go on and I go on and I go on. And
Kenneth, you go on and on and on. I love it. You do all the shameless promotion that we can't do for ourselves, and I can't tell you how grateful I am for that.
Well, you're absolutely welcome. I'm glad that I can play just a little part in getting people to listen to this brilliant work. Let's start.
Has showed me that, and I'm very, very happy about it.
Well, I'm very glad you are. You know, you talk about 18 tracks, Martin, but actually it's 48 minutes and 26 seconds of magnificence. I have it on my player here in the studio, and it plays and it plays and it plays, and I put it on repeat sometimes because I'm almost disappointed when it's over.
Oh.
It becomes a thing of, that's it? We're done? We have to start again, and I don't mind. So now I just learned to put it on repeat, and I adore it. I don't think there's one note on this album that I think, it didn't like that song or didn't like anything. I adore the whole thing from start to finish. It is magnificent. It really and truly is.
Thank you for saying that.
How have the sales gone?
Well, you know, I don't know because they don't come in daily. I get reports from iTunes and Amazon. I think it takes about 45 days between reports. So I'm sort of waiting to see what has happened. Initially, one of the things that really caught my cousin's interest was that he looked on on iTunes to search for one of the songs. In fact, it was the song Moliendo Café, which is one of the favorites, I believe, on the album, partially because it's a song that people know. It's one of the 2 covers. Everything else is original. But that one had some visibility right off the bat, and so my cousin looked for it on iTunes and found that it was number 2 on iTunes for that song, which has
Blog Talk Radio, the world's largest online radio network.
Martin, it's so great to have you here. Hi, how are you? And before we even get to that point, how are we going to change the name of this album? $2 to Ride the Train. And you know why I'm asking that question.
Ken, it's great to be here. In fact, I did ride the path to get here, and I paid $2.25 to ride the train. And you know what happened a while back in Portland, Oregon, which is where I live, is that the transportation office, the TriMet, the Oregon Transportation System, called and requested that I record a new version of the song. And they wanted the lyrics changed to either I paid $2.50 to ride the train, or even better for them, I paid some money to ride the train. Now, the reason for that is that they're changing their rates, and they don't want the community to be confused about what it costs to ride the train there, and they are looking to win people over, because the truth is that public transportation is very important, and with all of the budget cuts, they are not able to run the system effectively. They would have to cut lines or raise the price a little bit. So they contacted me, and I obliged, and now there's another version called I Paid Some Money to Ride the Train, which will be out shortly. We'll hear it.
That is so funny. So that, all right, so he's going to have to keep on evolving this album. Imagine 30 years down the road now, $20 to ride the train, perhaps, one stop or two. Martin, seriously,
well,
it's great to have you here. You look terrific. You are riding the crest of the wave of this amazing new album of yours, which you know I'm totally in love with. You've got it by now. How does it feel? How do you feel at this point? You're holding the CD, or I'm holding the CD in my hand. How does it feel?
Well, I have to tell you, to see you holding it with such enthusiasm and telling me all these wonderful things, I feel great. I feel very welcome here. I feel very happy that people are listening to the music and responding, much like yourself, very enthusiastically, very openly to it, and they're willing to listen to 18 tracks, which is sort of unheard of for an album these days. It's a bit, it's a lot of information, but the songs are short, and so people have been very kind and positive about it, and I feel great. I couldn't have asked for more, in a sense. I know there's a lot of music out there these days, and people have so many entertainment options. It's difficult to focus for 18 songs, but I think the album really takes you on a journey, and so it makes it easier to do that. But that's I think that's the key to it, is to find a way to bring people in and tell the story that people can connect to, and I feel like that has happened in this album, and the response.
What was Little Martin? You American-born?
Well, South American-born. I was born in Lima, Peru.
Aha.
And I was quickly moved over to London, Cambridge first, and then London with my family. Then I lived in London for many years. We moved back to Peru for a few years, then moved to France. Lived in France, in Spain, and back in London for a little while longer. And then moved back to South America, and shortly after that moved to New York, and then to Portland, Oregon, in around 1996.
Wow, you have been around, which prompts the next question: how many languages do you speak, Martin?
It's hard to tally that up exactly, because I don't feel like I speak all the languages that I am familiar with to the same degree, but I speak English, a little bit of English. I speak Spanish. Spanish is my first language. English, I guess, would be my second language. French would be my third language, and Portuguese is something that is has become one of the languages that I like very much, and I speak to some extent, but mostly because I really love Brazilian music, and also fado these days. I think just the Portuguese language and culture have so much to offer.
And so with all of that, you've forgotten one of the most primary languages you speak.
Oh, did I?
American.
Oh, American. Oh, yes, of course.